Save the Semantics, episode 354. It is Wednesday, November 26th, 2025. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Wednesday afternoon, right before Thanksgiving, which is tomorrow. That came up pretty quickly. Also, November has just gone by in a flash. Kind of crazy. We're already at the end of the year. I say this literally every year, but that's just what it feels like. A lot of things are moving quickly. A lot of things are also moving quickly in just my life as well. So just trying to kind of handle all of that. I haven't recorded anything in quite some time. So, at least over a week. So, and I probably won't be able to. I mean, we'll see. I'll see if I'm able to put something out. It would be interesting. So I'm going to Japan next week, which has been the first time in 10 years for me to see family. So it feels like something, it's been a long time since I've been there, since I was a teenager. So I'm sure things have changed, and I think it's not gonna, it's not gonna, I'm not gonna, it's not gonna like hit me until I'm there, that I'm kind of back home in a way, because it's another part of my life that I feel I haven't had the chance to return to in quite some time. So I'm looking forward to it. Of course I'm looking forward to it, but it's going to be interesting. I'm going to do some touristy stuff, but I think for the most part I want to use it for just to kind of as a space to just be somewhere different. Being around family and stuff is going to absolutely be a part of that as well. But also just kind of taking in, just being in that space is going to be, it's going to be different. It's going to be very different. And I want to be present when I'm there and everything, and not be, I feel like more recently, than not, maybe I've been kind of just consumed by just media consumption a little bit. I've kind of felt that a little bit. And so I really do want to be present and not, just not be looking at my phone for things if I can. So that's something to take into consideration, but I am really looking forward to it. And we'll see if I have the time to record something. It might be interesting to just talk in Japan and give a little bit of just kind of, talk about that. So we'll see if I can slot that in, but I do want to be, for the most part, kind of, it's funny to say disconnected in Tokyo, which is one of the biggest cities, and there's always something going on, but just be a little bit more, just be in that space a little bit more. Anyways, that's something I'm very much looking forward to. And I think, during that time, I don't know if I'll be able to really watch a ton of basketball. So I might miss out on some stuff. So while we're at it, let's catch up on some things. A lot of things can change within a week, but there are some trends going on right now, some interesting things, some teams sort of continuing to surge forward. The teams that come to mind include the Pistons, who have continued to their winning streak, although they right now they seem to be in a pretty tight game with the Celtics, as well as the Toronto Raptors. So the Pistons have won 13 in a row as of right now, and the Raptors have won 8 in a row. So both teams, I would say, not on my list of teams that I thought would be topping the East as of now, right? Again, it's early in the season. A lot of things can change, but a quarter of the way through, not a bad sample size, right? Not a bad sample size in terms of the amount of, you can kind of gauge certain things. I think what's been interesting about Detroit, and I have talked about this a little earlier, is they have managed to get wins without Cade. I think at least a few games he was out, they were able to win all of them. And then on top of that, I think their core has been intact. Their core has remained the same from last year. And then even from the year prior to that, which was that absolute dumpster fire of a season where they lost 28 games in a row. So that main young core of Cade, Duren, Asar Thompson, and I guess you could maybe slot in Jaden Ivey, although he just came back from an injury. Like, they've all been here for the last 3 years in Detroit, right? And I think that it's so interesting, especially on the coaching front, right? Like, that was kind of a disaster class from Monty Williams, right? Whenever I watch those teams, and I say this because recently there's been, for some reason, those 28 game losing streak videos kind of started popping up on my YouTube for some reason. I'm like, I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it's such in contrast to how well the Pistons are doing right now. But I think it's just how different things can be with a change in personnel, in a leadership role, approach and everything, right? Of course, that does come with the growth and maturation of your young core as well, right? Having, last year under their belts is huge. Getting a taste of playoffs in that first round series, a very tough fought series against the Knicks, I think is huge, and that is definitely substantial in terms of for that team wanting to grow and wanting to develop into a better team, and wanting to go further in the playoffs. So just this sort of continuity and just the absolute shift in mentality and approach has been absolutely huge for them. I talked about this with their identity piece, right? So I don't know how much more I can really add to that, but just establishing that and just building off of that, I think has been really interesting and fun to watch. Cade's been just awesome. I think he's just continuing to show his growth as a playmaker, as a scorer, just being just an all-around player for his team. He's on my fantasy team as well, so it helps for him to get his counting stats up. But just really impressive stuff right there. I don't know how much more to add to Detroit from based on what I've already talked about. Let's talk about Toronto a little bit. I believe I did touch upon them a little bit, but they're fascinating. They're probably, out of every team out there, the most interesting kind of early success story, right? I mean, everybody else, it's kind of expected, especially in the West and everything. The East is just there's no real clear number one team in the East right now. I'm sure once New York and Cleveland both get healthy and get their best players back in, with a Darius Garland or OG Anunoby for New York. I think they'll be some of the better teams in the East, but right now, until we get to that point, there's no clear number one or even number two. You can look at the standings and everything, but I just think that it's pretty wide open right now. And I think a team like Toronto is taking advantage of that fact. They're taking advantage of this sort of, vacancy in the East where nobody's really, proven themselves to be the best team. And, with maybe a little bit of injury luck on their side, as well as taking advantage of their maybe easier schedule, they've continued to rack up wins. And, I mean, you can only win who's in front of you. And it's been really impressive so far. I mean, they've had some pretty good wins over Cleveland. And, they had a fun win against, I think, Charlotte last week, which was fun. But they, I think Ingram slotting in really well as their primary scorer, but also having the ability to facilitate when the double does come. Scotty Barnes taking kind of the role of not having to be pressured into being a primary scorer, but being that connector on the offensive end, being just an absolute dog on the defensive end. They're a fun team to watch early, like very earlier on. I would say within the first couple of weeks or so of the season, the Raptors did not look super great. I think there was, some expectation that they were going to be, at least okay. But they've completely turned it around with just maybe kind of shifting how they approach, I think on the defensive end especially, but also on the offensive end. I mean, they're one of the best offensive teams in the league as of right now, because of just their style of play. They run and gun. They have like a clear, the way in which they approach. I remember I was watching, I think it was either they were playing against the Nets or Cleveland. They had a very clear, and this is what I like to see, especially towards the end of games in the fourth quarter, contrasting this with the Wolves, which I'm going to get to the Wolves again after this. But there's like a clear set play that they're running, which is I think it's interesting, and it's like it makes for good basketball, in my opinion. They set Ingram on the post, and they run some actions off ball, so some other players are cutting, or they just let him cook, and he kicks it out beyond the arc to another player, and then they bounce the ball around, and they get a better shot, right? Like, Ingram is capable of taking that shot and ISOing a player if no double comes. But if a double comes, it's like he passes it out and then they rotate the ball. And I'm like, that's just it feels really simple, but it's like really it's just is good basketball. It makes sense, right? It's like you put your best player in a certain position where he does have that advantage, and when he does become disadvantaged, when more defenders come at him, he's able to move the ball around so that they can get a better shot. It's just it's simple stuff, but it's effective. And they kept like running that action. Maybe there's some tweaks here and there, but there was like clear set plays that they were running at the end of games, which helped them win. Which has helped them win in multiple instances. And I like seeing that, because it's like there's a clear plan in terms of how to execute. And I think it's fun to watch that. It's like, okay, you see the vision, right? And for myself, who is still I'm still super, I'm a novice when it comes to these kinds of things, but I can at least recognize that, what they're trying to do. And it makes perfect sense to me for my, pretty simple brain, or, in terms of basketball. I can understand the types of set plays they're running, because the ultimate goal is to try to get the best shot they can at the end of, during the play, whether it's like a quickly three or a Mamukelashvili three, or just like an Ingram turnaround if it's just the single coverage. So I just, it's fun. Like, that's like fun. I'm like watching that kind of stuff honestly gives me more to just like learn about the game, right? And so I've appreciated that. It's fun to watch. They've been a fun team to watch. Unfortunately for another team that I did have some hopes for, the Chicago Bulls, they have since fallen off, unfortunately. They have come back down to earth. They are now, I think, 9-8 or 9-7 since their 6-1 start. And I don't know. I mean, what did I expect? That's like one where I'm like, what did I expect, right? It's the Bulls. It's still the Bulls. I think I had my reservations, but I was like, but they're so fun to watch. They were getting that, like, they got that Vucevic buzzer beater win against, or not, it wasn't a buzzer beater, but it was a game winner against Philly, and then he had a buzzer beater game against the Blazers, and they just kept winning in these like close games, and it's super fun. But now there are some clear cracks in this team, especially on the defensive end. That has been a huge issue. They let New Orleans score 143 points a couple nights ago. A couple nights ago, and there's really no excuse to that. I mean, the Pelicans are not a good team. Like, sure, Zion was playing, but I mean, what are they doing? So, unfortunately, that fun start has since kind of dissipated, and now they're back to where they have been, which is 500. I mean, they're not 500 yet, but it feels like they're trending that way. But based on kind of what I've seen from them, it's very much clear that it's a defensive thing. They do not have the personnel to be able. They don't have like great defenders. Their only like good defenders are, I would say, like Isaac Okoro and Ayo Dosunmu, but like that's kind of it. Everybody else is sort of, I don't know. I think they were maybe punching above their weight a little bit earlier on in the season. I remember hearing a thing where opponents were shooting very poorly from three. That could have been a case of some shooting luck on their end as well. So it's not looked great for them, unfortunately. Maybe they can bounce back. Maybe they can kind of find a way to be that fun team again. But it's what's worked out has since sort of not come into play, unfortunately for them. So I don't know. I'll still be watching them, because they could still be a fun team, but they've lost a little bit of what made them so good. And I think it might just be the fact that maybe opponents are like catching up to what they're trying to do. And maybe they're just not hitting their shots as much as they have been, and opponents are taking advantage of the fact that their defense is not very good. So I don't know. I think it's maybe opponents have just kind of caught on to what they've been doing. Like, they also let up like 140 points to the Heat. Like, they have been giving up so much, and I just don't. It's a sign that there's a sign that something's not working. So, anyways, just put a pin in that for Chicago. Yeah, just kind of a bit of a trend downward for them. All right, I alluded to this. Another team that has been disappointing. My Warriors. My Golden State Warriors. Yeah, it hasn't been great. It feels kind of similar to how it felt last year. And I hate saying that because I thought we moved past it. But a lot of the issues that we had last year, whether it's others' ability to score outside of Curry, and now Jimmy Butler, They just don't have enough, really. They won against Utah last game. They're playing against the Rockets tonight, which I have some concerns about. I'm hoping it'll be a good game, but their size is just an absolute problem for them. There's been some brutal losses they've had. And it doesn't feel great. And I think, unfortunately, this optimism that I had and other people had with sort of the Kuminga thing, he hasn't played, despite it sounding like a pretty minor to even like not even that much of an injury. They're keeping him out. It sounds like a trade is coming with him included in some trade package, right? My thing is there a suitor? And what does the return package look like for him, plus like a pods and maybe some other pieces, right? Because I don't really know. Would like the Nets be willing to trade like a Nick Claxton or someone else? I don't know who else they would. I don't know who else there would be. Claxton would be pretty good as like a starting center for us. I don't know if, would the Nets want to, would they be okay with taking on Kuminga and having him sort of be the primary scorer piece? That might be interesting, right? I don't know what the contract situation looks like for Claxton, but that would be something, honestly. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Outside of that, I don't really know. Washington, I think they're already in a position where they have enough young players, and I don't think Kuminga is going to be the guy for them. I think right now it's like Sarr's their best player, but he's not he's not going to be like a number one option, and I don't think I just don't know how well that's going to work out. And they also don't really have any pieces that maybe like a Corey Kispert, another shooter, that would be nice. That would be good. Another complementary piece, but how effective is he going to be with like a, in a similar position to like a Moses Moody, or a Buddy Hield? We do need some scoring. We need scoring and size. So maybe Kispert could do a little bit of that. But we need it feels like we need two players. It feels like we need two decent complementary players that are consistent scorers. I don't know. There's a lot to ask. But I think Kispert might be interesting. Again, I don't know what the salary looks like, but maybe they can make it work. I just don't know why Washington would do that, but who knows? Other candidates. Markkanen is too much. The salaries don't work. That I know for sure. I feel like that ship has also sailed, so I don't think that's going to happen. Any other teams? Mostly looking at the East. I don't know how many teams the Warriors would be willing to trade in with direct competitors. I just don't think that's going to happen. I know Davis is I know the Mavericks are open for trading Anthony Davis. I just don't. He would be great, but just his injury history, I don't know. I don't know about that one. Also a massive salary. I just don't know. I don't think the Warriors are going to be able to cobble enough players to make that work. In the East, outside of Washington, Brooklyn, Charlotte, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just looking at, some of these younger teams that might be looking to move some pieces. I can really only think of Kispert and Claxton as potential, pieces there. I have no idea though. but we'll see. I'll see what, like, we'll see what it looks like once it comes to like December. I think December 15th is when trade is open. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, Warriors are not in a great position right now. It just feels like we're kind of back where we were last year. So that's tough. But yeah, change is going to be necessary there. Another team, the Wolves. So I talked about, and I've talked about this last year too, their late game execution has been absolutely terrible. And it is the same frustrating lack of any type of play call that allows them to allows other teams to get back into the game. And this has happened on 2 occasions on back-to-back games with Phoenix and with the Kings of all teams. And it is the same frustration I had towards periods of last year. It's like the Milwaukee game comes to mind. I keep referencing that game because I was like, dude, they gave up like a 25-point lead in the 4th quarter or something crazy like that. It just was so... And I know, like, Giannis was there and he contributed to that, but, like, it wasn't, like, him. It was just, like, the Wolves just were not running anything. And in their most recent game against the Kings, I was like, it was just ant ISOs. I'm like, dude, they're doing this again? They're doing this again. It's like they haven't learned from last year at all. And this feels a lot like a coaching issue, unfortunately. Like, how many times do they need to go through that to, like, get, like, hey, maybe it's a good idea to actually run something instead of having Ant run down the clock, maybe try to take it to the rim, which he did a few times and it worked out, or him jacking up threes, which he can make, but it's like not an advisable shot, like, with like, the defender kind of draped all over him. I just don't... It's frustrating because it's like, you're watching that in comparison to, again, like, as I was referencing, like, the Toronto game, like, there was a clear thing they were trying to run at the end of the game there, and it worked because there was, like, a plan. There was alternates to what they could do. With, like, the Wolves, it's just kind of like Ant do something, maybe DiVincenzo hits a 3 and can hit a 3, or, like, maybe Randall can do something, but it was just horrible. It was horrible. The fact that they need, like, Mike Conley out there at 38 years old to run the offense is just kind of like, I don't know. And here's the thing, and I bring up the Toronto comparison because Quickly is not, like, this true point guard, right? He's had some point guard play and everything, but they don't have, like, a true point guard to be to really run out there. I guess you could point out to, like, Jamal Shed. He's been huge for them, for Toronto, right? So I think they've had them play at the same time, and so that's been, like, a huge benefit to their play. But regardless, like, I think in other instances, like, there's not, like, this, like, I don't know, there's not, like, this, like, point guard for Toronto necessarily, and they're still able to, like, run actions with their other players, running it through, like, Ingram especially, right? And I'm just like, I just don't understand. There's, like, no movement. You watch these possessions by the Wolves, and it's like everybody's, like, spread out, like, only Gobert is in the paint, maybe. and there's just no movement whatsoever. And it is the most frustrating basketball to watch, because it's like they have Ant, and they also have Randall too, who's been playing fairly well. But it's like, if you have one of the best players in the league, I know he can score, he can make big time shots, but you still gotta do something, right? Like, run some offense. And like, they also didn't really call any timeouts towards the end of that game either. I'm like, why would you not call timeout when they get into like a possession of the game? And it was just almost as if they were just kind of like give up, and they were like, let them figure it out. And it was just so mind numbing to watch that. So it's just like watching actual play calls and movements, and there's like a plan to do something, right? Even if they miss the shot, it's like, at least they tried something. With the Wolves, it's like there's nothing going on, and I'm like, I just don't understand. And at a certain point, you kind of have to look, like, of course you can put the blame on the players, because they're the ones actually doing the things. Like, they're the ones actually handling the ball and putting the ball in the basket and everything. But someone has to do something. I mean, what is the coach there for, right? And that's been a consistent issue for years now. Every time that it comes down to it, that's why I had so much, like, when they were going against the Lakers, I was like, yeah, they're late. The Wolves' late game execution is awful. That was my biggest kind of citing point as to why I thought the Lakers were gonna pull it off, because they had closers in Luka, LeBron, even Austin Reeves now, and I'm like, it makes sense, right? But obviously the Lakers, their lack of depth was kind of exposed and all that stuff, right? We don't need to go over that. But my biggest thing of why I felt the Wolves were not going to be able to do well in the playoffs is because of that late game execution. And they were able to figure it out. And I'm like, I don't understand why. What happened? Why are they not doing things that has worked before? What doesn't work is letting Ant dribble out the ball, and then he puts up a shot, an ill-advised shot, even though he can make it. It's so annoying. And I'm like, it kind of comes down to coaching, I think, in those instances. And I've been seeing a lot of that kind of sentiment from Minnesota fans in terms of like fire Finch and all that. And I understand that they've had success with him over the last few years, going to the Western Conference Finals and everything. But there's also a ceiling too. There's also a ceiling in terms of what can be done. If he's not effectively using the personnel on his team and is also not effectively making the right calls, then there needs to be like a change, right? If you're seeing these kinds of same things over and over again, and you're getting the same results, right? Like, it's there. The proof is in the pudding, right? Like, it's right there. And who knows? Maybe they turn it around. Maybe they can show once again that they're actually a pretty good team. But I think there is a clear ceiling with this team in terms of how they play, because it's not fun to watch. I love Ant. I love watching him play. He's super exciting, but there is like a limit. He can't just carry the team, at least not yet, right? Like, there are moments. I mean, he scored 42 points and they lost in that Kings game. So he tried to do that, but it's like, there's gotta be a little bit more, just separation of roles and being able to carry the load a little bit more by other players on that roster, and it just hasn't shown that way. And so they've been frustrating for the last little while. And I don't know, it feels I don't know. It just feels like there's like a limit to what they currently are. I mean, Gobert is getting older. Obviously, I already talked about Conley getting older. The fact that, Rob Dillingham has not looked good at all has been a huge issue for them, because they need point guard play for them for that team to be, somewhat successful. So those are all things that I think are, I don't know, they're points to that are absolutely hindering this team right now. And I think it's going to be an interesting, I don't know, I'm just like, what's it going to look like, because I don't think they're good, and they can be good, but that thorn, just that play style has not been conducive to good basketball. Anyways, there's a lot more stuff going on, but those are kind of the points that I wanted to get to in terms of things that I've seen, the teams that have intrigued me the most, teams that have frustrated me. But yeah, just wanted to hop on for a little bit here and talk about that. I'll probably try to post this later tonight, and who knows, maybe some of those streaks, including the Pistons one and the Raptors one, may have come to an end. We'll see. But yeah, just wanted to talk about some of those trends and some of the interesting things that I've picked up over the last last couple of weeks or so. Anyways, that's going to do it for today. The next time I record, maybe this weekend, I'll see if I have time. I'll be trying to, pack and everything, and I'm leaving on Sunday, so who knows, maybe the next time I record it will be in Japan, so it might be a little bit of time, but we'll see. Maybe I'm able to carve out some time during this time during the week. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for listening. As always, this has been Save the Semantics, signing off.